Every morning at 7:15, the bell above Miller's diner would chime, and Margaret would already be reaching for the coffee pot. She knew exactly who was coming through that door. Harold Bennett was 83 years old, always wearing the same brown fedora and gray wool jacket. He'd shuffle to the corner booth by the window, the one with the best view of Main Street, and wait patiently with his hands folded on the table. Margaret had been waitressing at Miller's for 32 years. She'd seen regulars come and go, watched the neighborhood change, but something about Harold touched her heart differently. Maybe it was the loneliness in his eyes, or the way his hands trembled slightly when he lifted his coffee cup. "Good morning, Harold," she'd say warmly, already pouring his black coffee. He'd nod with a gentle smile. "Good morning, Margaret. Same as always, if you don't mind. 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast lightly buttered, and a small glass of orange juice." It never changed. But Margaret noticed other things too. Harold's jacket was worn thin at the elbows. His shoes were polished but old, resoled multiple times. He'd sit for nearly 2 hours, making that single breakfast last, as if he had nowhere else to be. One particularly cold November morning, Margaret brought an extra slice of toast. "On the house," she said quietly. Harold looked up at her, and for a moment she thought she saw his eyes glisten. "You're very kind," he whispered. As weeks turned into months, their morning routine deepened into something more. Harold would tell her stories about his late wife Eleanor, how they'd met at a dance hall in 1962, how she'd made the best apple pie in 3 counties. Margaret would share stories about her grown children, her worries about her daughter's struggling marriage, her pride in her son's teaching career. Some mornings, Harold's hand shook so badly he struggled to butter his toast. Margaret would casually reach over and help, chatting about the weather as if it were nothing. When she noticed his coat getting thinner as winter deepened, she brought in her late husband's heavy jacket. "Found this in the closet," she said. "No use letting it go to waste." Harold protested at first, but Margaret insisted, and eventually he accepted with quiet dignity. The other staff sometimes teased her. "He's just a customer, Margaret," her co-worker Linda would say. "You can't save everyone." But Margaret wasn't trying to save anyone. She was simply doing what felt right, treating another human being with the kindness everyone deserves. Then came that Tuesday morning in late January. Margaret was refilling Harold's coffee when the diner door opened. 4 men in dark suits walked in, their presence immediately commanding attention. Behind them came 2 more people, a silver-haired woman carrying a leather briefcase and a younger man with wire-rimmed glasses. They moved directly toward Harold's table. The diner went quiet. "Mr. Bennett," the woman said formally, "I'm Patricia Chambers, senior partner at Chambers & Associates. We've been trying to reach you for 6 months." Harold looked up, confusion crossing his weathered face. "I don't understand. You are Harold James Bennett, correct? Born April 14th, 1941. Last residence on Elmwood Street?" "That's right," Harold said slowly. His hands were shaking more than usual. Margaret instinctively stepped closer to the table. "Then I'm pleased to inform you that we successfully concluded the estate settlement of your late cousin, Jonathan Bennett. He passed away 18 months ago in Boston. After extensive searching, we confirmed you as his sole living heir." Harold just stared. The lawyer continued. "Your cousin was a very successful investor, Mr. Bennett. His estate, after taxes and fees, comes to approximately $4.7 million. Margaret gasped. Several diners turned to look. Harold seemed frozen, unable to process the words. There must be some mistake. He finally whispered, "No mistake, sir," the younger man said, opening a folder. "We have all the documentation. Birth certificates, family records, DNA confirmation. It's yours." The bodyguards stood silently, their presence now making sense. This wasn't a small matter. One of the lawyers looked at Margaret, then back at Harold. "Sir, we need to discuss security, asset management, and immediate arrangements. Is there somewhere private we can talk?" Harold looked lost, overwhelmed. Then his eyes found Margaret. She saw the fear there, the uncertainty of a man whose entire world had just shifted. Could Margaret stay? He asked quietly. She's been more family to me these past months than anyone. Patricia Chambers glanced at Margaret, then nodded. Of course, if that's your wish. They moved to the diner's small back office. Papers were signed. Account explained. Security protocols established. Through it all, Harold kept looking to Margaret, and she stayed right beside him, her hand occasionally touching his shoulder for reassurance. When the lawyers finally left, the diner erupted in excited chatter. But Harold just sat at his usual booth, staring at his cold coffee. Margaret, he said softly, I don't know what to do with all this. You live your life, Harold, she replied. The same good life you've been living, just with a few less worries. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and took her hand. These months when I had nothing, you treated me like I mattered. You gave me dignity when the world had forgotten I existed. His voice cracked. That jacket, the extra toast, the conversations, just seeing your kind face every morning. That was worth more than any inheritance. Margaret felt tears prick her eyes. You always mattered, Harold. Money doesn't change that. The next morning, Harold came in at 7:15 as always, wearing his fedora and the warm jacket Margaret had given him. He ordered his usual breakfast. But this time, when Margaret brought the check, she found a folded paper underneath his plate. It was a cashier's check for $50,000. Margaret, the note read, This isn't payment for kindness, because that would be impossible. This is simply a gift from one friend to another. Please use it for something that brings you joy. Margaret tried to refuse, but Harold was insistent. You showed me that wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, he said. Let me show you the same thing. In the month that followed, Harold did move to a better apartment, but he never stopped coming to Miller's Diner every morning at 7:15. And Margaret was always there, coffee pot ready, with that warm smile that had meant everything to a lonely old man when he needed it most. Some of the other regulars said Harold should have given her more, but they didn't understand. The real gift had never been about money. It was about human connection, about dignity, about showing up for another person simply because it was right. And that was something that couldn't be measured in dollars. It could only be measured in the warmth of a morning greeting, the comfort of a listening ear, and the knowledge that in a world that often feels cold and indifferent, kindness still matters most. Every single day. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us what truly matters in life. Leave a comment below about a time someone showed you unexpected kindness, or when you were able to brighten someone's day. Your stories inspire others to spread more compassion in this world.